Welcome to The Explainer. Look, if you're a business owner, you already know the drill. Customer loyalty is literally the holy grail. But how do you actually pull that off in a digital world that's just packed with distractions? Well, today, we're diving into the mechanics behind taking isolated one-off buyers and transforming them into a thriving, fiercely loyal ecosystem that actively drives your revenue. We are decoding the business of belonging.
It's super easy to see why we lose customer loyalty, right? Think about the classic tacked-on corporate forum. Honestly, it's usually a total ghost town of unanswered support questions. Nothing's happening there. But contrast that with a meticulously designed digital ecosystem. This is the cure for customer churn, guys. True community websites aren't just features you bolt onto a landing page as an afterthought. They're carefully cultivated habitats that actually foster brand growth, generate invaluable feedback, and make your customers feel like they're truly part of something bigger.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our architectural blueprint for today's explainer so you know exactly what return on investment you'll get from these next few minutes. We'll start with the business of belonging, move into essential community features, examine case studies in brand growth, walk through the steps to build your community, and finally wrap up with measuring your success.
Section 1. The business of belonging, the foundation.
So before we even think about picking out the paint colors for our digital house, we've got to pour the concrete, right? We have to understand the what of our framework. Building a successful community website is honestly just like building the foundation of a house or a well-tended natural habitat. There's a quote from our source material that I absolutely love. An effective community engagement website is a meticulously designed digital ecosystem. Just like a flourishing natural habitat, true connection doesn't just happen by accident. No way. It has to be built with human nature in mind. It requires a space that feels organic, safe, and inherently valuable to the people spending their time there. Which brings us to our very first pillar, purpose-driven architecture. Look, before you lay a single brick, your community has got to have a singular, unmistakable purpose. Like, what's the goal here? Are you trying to crowdsource product innovation, or maybe you're building a space for peer-to-peer customer support? If you don't define this central why, your community is going to suffer from totally scattered momentum. Every single feature, from your homepage layout down to the user profiles, must relentlessly guide your members toward that central goal. Moving right along to Section 2, Essential Community Features, Building the Rooms. Let's transition from those foundational principles to the actual tangible tools, the rooms of our digital house that keep the whole environment self-sustaining. First up, user-generated content, or UGC hubs. Think of these as the central meeting place, kind of like the kitchen at a house party. We're talking forum posts, photo galleries, Q&A sections. Because here's the thing. Without user contributions, your community is just an empty room where you're basically talking to yourself. Fresh conversations driven by the users themselves are absolutely the lifeblood of community engagement. All right, speeding things up a bit, let's talk about how we keep that momentum going. Enter event calendars and gamification. An event calendar is brilliant because it creates shared experiences. Think live Q&As or webinars, giving your members a reason to all show up at the exact same time. And what about those digital trophies? Well, gamification taps directly into our hardwired human desire for achievement. Giving out points or badges for helpful contributions, it's positive reinforcement that literally keeps your users coming back to level up their status.
That brings us to Section 3, Case Studies in Brand Growth, the Neighborhood.
Now, if you're a pragmatic business owner, you're probably sitting there asking, okay, but how does this actually drive revenue? Let's look at how these ecosystems translate into real-world peer-to-peer sales and product innovation. Now, what's really interesting here is that specific number, 10,000. On the LEGO Ideas platform, 10,000 is the exact number of community votes a user's custom design needs to trigger an official review by LEGO's own designers. If chosen, that user's idea becomes a real product sold in stores. LEGO has effectively gamified their entire research and development pipeline, letting their fans tell them exactly what products will sell before they even spend a dime manufacturing them.
And this brilliantly illustrates how different models can work. Let's compare two different approaches. We just talked about LEGO leveraging its community for massive, completely free product R&D. That's one way to do it. But then consider Sephora's Beauty Insider community. Sephora took a totally different route. They built a highly trusted space focused strictly on brand advocates. Customers share their makeup looks, they join niche groups like skincare addicts, and they build social capital by becoming recognized experts. The genius here is that this peer-to-peer advice naturally drives product sales because the recommendations are coming from trusted fellow customers, not some corporate marketing campaign. Both models drive incredible business value, just in completely different ways.
All right, on to Section 4, Steps to Build Your Community, the Blueprint.
So,
you've seen the massive potential here. Now, how do you actually execute this thing? Well, here is your screen grab-worthy checklist. This is the exact strategic framework from our source material to help you start laying the bricks of your own community from the ground up. Number 1, define your why. We just talked about that purpose-driven architecture, absolutely crucial. Number 2, choose your platform. 3, design the user journey. 4, seed the community, meaning please don't invite people to an empty party. Create some prompt discussions before you officially launch. And finally, number 5, promote and nurture it with active hands-on management. Let's actually zoom in on step 2 for a second, because I know this is where a lot of business owners get completely stuck. Choosing your platform. You really have to weigh your budget against your actual technical resources here. On one side, you have out-of-the-box SaaS products, think Circle.so or Mighty Networks. These are super fast to set up and incredibly easy to manage. But on the flip side, you have open-source software, like Discourse. Now, this offers incredibly deep customization, but it demands some serious technical skill to keep it running smoothly. You've got to choose the tool that fits your team's actual realistic capabilities.
And as you're designing that user journey back in step 3, I want you to focus on this exact phrase: low-friction onboarding. Imagine walking up to a beautiful, lush park, but the front gate is locked with some overly complicated keypad. What happens? Most people are just going to walk away. A confusing onboarding process is literally a locked gate to your community. Signing up, creating a profile, and making that very first contribution, it all must be remarkably fast and totally intuitive.
Which brings us to our final section, number 5, measuring your success, the inspection. So how do you actually inspect this finished house and measure your return on investment? Well, the absolutely crucial point here is knowing what to look at. Here are the key performance indicators cleanly categorized for you. First step, engagement metrics. We're talking daily or monthly active users and how often they're actually contributing content. Second, growth metrics. And please pay close attention to this one. High growth, like tons of new signups, combined with a low retention rate, is a glaring red flag. It means your marketing is totally working, but your community lacks genuine value once people get inside. Finally, do not ignore qualitative metrics. Use feedback surveys and sentiment analysis to understand the actual mood and tone of the conversations happening in your ecosystem. Which brings us to our final and maybe most important question. Are you just collecting customers, or are you actually cultivating a community? Look, a purely transactional customer base is incredibly fragile, but a true community, that is a self-sustaining engine for brand loyalty and growth. It's really time to move beyond simply selling to people and start empowering an ecosystem that literally builds your brand for you. Think about how you can apply these architectural principles to your own business this week. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.